The scent of lavender and aged paper filled the air as Liam's trembling hands unfolded the delicate parchment. The faded ink scrawled across the page told a story he never expected to read, a confession of love, passion, and betrayal. The letter, dated 15 years ago, was addressed to his wife, Emily. The signature at the bottom made his blood run cold. It wasn't her name or even her lover's that shook him to his core. It was his brother's, Christopher. Liam sat on the edge of their king-sized bed, the letter trembling in his hands. His mind raced with questions. Christopher had been gone for over a decade, killed in a car accident that had left the family shattered. Liam had mourned his brother deeply, and Emily had been his rock through the grief, or so he had thought. The words blurred on the page as anger and disbelief surged through him. He read them again, slower this time, dissecting each line as though trying to decode a secret language. My dearest Emily, there are no words to truly express how much you mean to me. Every moment with you feels stolen, a sin wrapped in the guise of something holy. I know it can't last, but I can't bring myself to let you go. If Liam ever knew. God, I can't even imagine. Please, let's find a way to end this before we ruin everything. But even as I write this, I know I don't mean it. I love you too much. Liam clenched his jaw so tightly it hurt. The words echoed in his mind, if Liam ever knew. Well, now he did. The room felt suffocating, the air too thick to breathe. He shoved the letter back into the envelope and tucked it into his pocket. He needed answers. Emily was in the kitchen, humming softly as she chopped vegetables for dinner. The scene was domestic, ordinary, too ordinary for what Liam was about to unleash. He stood in the doorway, his shadow falling across the tiled floor. She glanced up and smiled, her eyes crinkling at the corners. There you are. Dinner's almost ready, she said, her tone light. Liam didn't move. He didn't smile. Instead, he pulled the letter from his pocket and placed it on the counter between them. The smile on Emily's face faltered as her gaze shifted to the envelope. What's this? She asked, her voice tinged with curiosity and a hint of caution. Why don't you tell me? Liam's voice was low, steady, too steady. He folded his arms across his chest, watching her reaction. Emily wiped her hands on a dish towel and picked up the envelope. As she slid the letter out and began to read, her face drained of color. Her hands trembled and she clutched the edge of the counter for support. Where did you find this? She whispered. In a box of Christopher's old things. You know, the ones we packed away after his funeral, Liam replied, his tone sharp. Emily's lips parted as though she wanted to speak, but no words came. The silence stretched between them, heavy and oppressive. Was it true? Liam demanded. Did you and Christopher? He couldn't bring himself to say the words. Emily's eyes filled with tears and she shook her head. Liam, please. I can explain. Explain what? He snapped. That you were sleeping with my brother while we were married? That he betrayed me as much as you did? It wasn't like that, she said, her voice breaking. It was. Don't you dare tell me it was a mistake, Liam interrupted. That's the one thing I won't believe. Emily took a deep, shuddering breath. It wasn't a mistake, but it wasn't what you think either. Please, Liam, just let me explain. Emily sat at the dining table, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Liam stood across from her, his arms crossed, waiting for her to speak. It started after Christopher moved back to town, she began hesitantly. You were working so much back then, always traveling for your job. I was lonely, Liam. I'm not blaming you, it's just how it was. So what? You turned to my brother for comfort? He asked bitterly. Emily flinched. It wasn't like I planned it. Christopher and we just connected. He understood me in a way I didn't expect. And how long did it last? Liam pressed. Emily hesitated. A few months, she admitted. But it ended before, her voice broke. Before he died. Liam let out a bitter laugh. Oh well, that's convenient, isn't it? He dies and you get to bury your secret with him. It wasn't like that. Emily cried. I wanted to tell you, but I was scared of what it would do to you, to us. Liam shook his head. You didn't just betray me. You betrayed our marriage, our family. And Christopher, he was my brother, for God's sake. How could he do this to me? Emily's tears spilled over. I'm sorry, Liam. I've carried this guilt for so long, and not a day has gone by that I haven't hated myself for it. Not enough to tell me the truth, Liam said coldly. That night, Liam couldn't sleep. The letter sat on the nightstand, a haunting reminder of the betrayal that had upended his world. As he stared at the ceiling, another thought crept into his mind, a thought that refused to be ignored. What if there's more to the story? The letter hinted at a relationship, yes, but it also suggested a level of secrecy and urgency that didn't quite add up. Let's find a way to end this before we ruin everything. What had Christopher meant by that? And why did the letter feel so unfinished? Driven by a need for answers, Liam slipped out of bed and made his way to the attic. He found the box of Christopher's belongings and began to sift through it, searching for anything that might provide more insight. There, buried beneath old photographs and mementos, he found a small leather journal. It was Christopher's handwriting, neat, precise, unmistakable. Liam hesitated, his heart pounding, before flipping it open to the first page. Liam hesitated before turning the first page of the journal. His hands were steady, but his heart raced as though it already knew the secrets contained within. The first few entries were mundane, notes about work, casual musings about life, but then, a few weeks in, the tone shifted. March 14, 2009. I didn't mean for this to happen. I swear I didn't. But I can't stop thinking about her. Emily. She's always been kind, always been beautiful, but now, it's different. She's lonely, I can see it in her eyes, and I can't help but want to be the one to make her smile again. I know it's wrong. She's Liam's wife. My brother's wife. I've tried to push these feelings away, but they keep pulling me back. God help me, I don't know how much longer I can pretend I don't care. Liam clenched his teeth, the words cutting into him like a knife. He turned to the next entry, compelled by a mixture of anger and morbid curiosity. March 28, 2009. It happened tonight. I couldn't stop myself. I kissed her and she didn't pull away. For a moment, it felt like the world stopped, like nothing else mattered but her and me. But then she pushed me back, tears in her eyes, and told me we couldn't do this. She said she loved Liam. I should have listened. I should have walked away right then. But I didn't. Liam slammed the journal shut, his breathing ragged. He wanted to throw it across the room, to destroy it, but something kept him rooted in place. He needed the truth no matter how much it hurt. He opened it again and flipped to the final entries. May 3, 2009. Emily and I agreed to end things. It's killing me, but I know it's the right thing to do. Liam doesn't deserve this. He's a good man, a good brother. But there's something else. I think someone knows. There was a note slipped under my door today. No signature, just 4 words. I know your secret. May 15, 2009. The notes keep coming. Whoever it is, they're threatening to tell Liam. I don't know what to do. I've tried to find out who it is, but they're careful, too careful. Emily's scared and so am I. This gets out. May 27, 2009. This will be my last entry. I've made a decision. I can't let this ruin Liam's life, or Emily's. I'm going to confront whoever is behind the notes. I don't know what's going to happen, but I have to try. If something happens to me, I just hope Liam can forgive me someday. Liam stared at the final page, his mind reeling. The journal had ended just a few days before Christopher's fatal car accident. Or was it an accident? Unanswered questions. The next morning, Liam confronted Emily again, the journal in hand. Did you know about the notes? He demanded, tossing the book onto the kitchen table. Emily's eyes widened as she stared at the journal. What is this? Christopher's journal, Liam replied. He wrote about everything, about your affair, about the note someone sent him. He thought someone was going to expose you. Did you know? Emily's face paled. No, she whispered. I had no idea. He said he was going to confront whoever it was, Liam continued, his voice rising. And then days later he's dead. Are you telling me that's just a coincidence? Emily shook her head, tears streaming down her face. I don't know, Liam. I swear, I didn't know about any of this. Liam ran a hand through his hair, his frustration boiling over. Then who did? Who hated him enough, or us enough, to do this? Emily's eyes darted away, her expression shifting as though a thought had just occurred to her. There was someone, she said hesitantly. Someone who might have known. Who? Liam demanded. Claire, Emily said softly. Claire had been Christopher's ex-girlfriend, a fiery woman with a sharp tongue and a possessive streak. Their relationship had ended poorly, with Claire accusing Christopher of betrayal and swearing she'd make him pay. Liam hadn't thought about her in years, but now, the memory of her bitter words sent a chill down his spine. You think Claire was behind the notes? He asked. Emily nodded. She always hated me. She thought I was the reason Christopher broke up with her. If she found out about us, she might have tried to blackmail him, Liam finished, his mind racing. And if he confronted her? Emily's eyes widened. Liam, are you saying she might have? I don't know, Liam admitted. But I'm going to find out. Tracking Claire down wasn't difficult. She still lived in the same small apartment she'd shared with Christopher years ago. Liam knocked on the door, his heart pounding as he rehearsed what he was going to say. When Claire opened the door, her eyes widened in surprise. "Liam? Can I come in?" he asked, forcing a polite tone. Claire hesitated, then stepped aside. "What's this about?" Liam didn't waste time. He pulled the journal from his pocket and placed it on her coffee table. "Christopher wrote this before he died. He mentioned someone was threatening him, someone who knew about his affair with Emily. Was it you?" Claire's expression hardened. "What are you talking about?" "Don't play dumb," Liam snapped. "You hated him after he left you. You hated Emily too. Did you send him those notes?" Claire's face twisted with anger. "I didn't send him anything. And for the record, I didn't hate Christopher. I loved him even after he left me for her." Liam's eyes narrowed. "Then why did he think someone was after him?" Claire hesitated, then sighed. "Because someone was." Claire revealed that she had seen Christopher arguing with a man in the weeks before his death. "I don't know who he was," she admitted. "But Christopher seemed scared of him. He told me to stay away, that it was none of my business." "Why didn't you say anything after he died?" Liam demanded. "Because I didn't think it mattered," Claire said, her voice breaking. "I thought it was just some work thing or a bad debt. I didn't know it had anything to do with you and Emily." Liam's blood ran cold. If Christopher had been threatened by someone outside their family, then his death might not have been an accident after all. But who had wanted him silenced? And why? Claire's revelation deepened the mystery. Liam left her apartment with more questions than answers. If Christopher had been threatened by someone unknown, the affair was only part of a larger puzzle. Back at home, Emily was pacing the living room, her nerves frayed. When Liam walked in, she rushed to him. "Well?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Did she admit to it?" Liam shook his head. "Claire didn't send the notes. But she did say Christopher was being threatened by someone. A man he was afraid of." Emily's brow furrowed. "A man? Who?" "She didn't know," Liam replied. "But if Christopher was being blackmailed or intimidated, it changes everything. What if his death wasn't an accident? What if someone killed him to keep him quiet?" Emily gasped, covering her mouth. "Oh my God. Liam, you don't think?" "I don't know what to think," Liam cut her off. "But I'm going to find out." The next day, Liam made his way to the local police station to speak with Detective Harper, the officer who had investigated Christopher's car accident all those years ago. Harper was a grizzled man in his 60s, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "You're reopening your brother's death in your mind after all these years?" Harper asked, leaning back in his chair. "I'm not reopening anything. I'm just looking for answers," Liam said. "There are things I didn't know back then. Christopher was being threatened, and I think it might have had something to do with his death." Harper raised an eyebrow. "Threatened? By who?" "I don't know yet," Liam admitted. "But is there anything from the investigation that seemed off? Anything that might suggest his death wasn't an accident?" Harper sighed and pulled a file from his desk drawer. The case was pretty cut and dry. Christopher's car went off the road late at night, no sign of foul play. Toxicology report came back clean. "But," Liam leaned forward. "But what?" "There was one thing that didn't sit right," Harper said, flipping through the file. "The brake lines on his car were frayed. We chalked it up to wear and tear, but now that you mention threats..." He trailed off, his gaze meeting Liam's. Liam felt a chill run down his spine. "Are you saying someone might have tampered with his brakes?" "I'm saying it's possible," Harper replied. "But without new evidence, there's nothing I can do officially." "Then I'll find the evidence," Liam said firmly. Determined to find the truth, Liam delved deeper into Christopher's life, revisiting old contacts and digging through his financial records. What he found surprised him: a series of large cash withdrawals from Christopher's account in the months before his death. Liam showed the records to Emily. "Blackmail?" she said immediately. "He was paying someone to keep quiet?" "But who?" Liam asked. Emily hesitated, then her eyes widened. "Do you remember Marcus? Christopher's old business partner?" Liam frowned. "Barely. Why?" "They had a falling out around the same time," Emily said. "Christopher said Marcus was angry about a deal that went bad. What if Marcus was the one threatening him?" Liam nodded slowly. "It's worth looking into." Liam tracked Marcus down to a dingy bar on the edge of town. The man had aged poorly, his once clean-cut appearance replaced by a scruffy beard and a worn leather jacket. "Liam," Marcus said when he saw him, his tone guarded. "Long time no see." "Cut the small talk," Liam said, sitting across from him. I care now about the money Christopher was withdrawing before he died. Were you blackmailing him? Marcus's eyes narrowed. What are you talking about? Don't play dumb, Liam snapped. You were angry with Christopher. Did you threaten him? Did you have something to do with his death? Marcus laughed bitterly. You think I killed him? You're barking up the wrong tree, pal. I didn't threaten Christopher. I tried to warn him. Liam blinked. Warn him? About what? Marcus leaned in, his voice low. Christopher got involved with the wrong people. Loan sharks. He borrowed money to cover a bad investment, and when he couldn't pay it back, they came after him. Liam's stomach dropped. Who were they? Marcus shrugged. I don't know their names. Just that they don't mess around. I told Christopher to go to the police, but he refused. Said he didn't want you or Emily to find out. Liam's mind raced. If Marcus was telling the truth, then Christopher's death was no accident, and the real culprits were still out there. Liam returned home, his thoughts swirling. He shared what Marcus had told him with Emily, who looked just as horrified as he felt. So these loan sharks, they killed him? Emily asked. It's possible, Liam said. But there's still something missing. Why would they go to the trouble of threatening him for months only to kill him in the end? And why hasn't anyone come after us if they knew about the affair? Emily shook her head. I don't know. That night, Liam revisited Christopher's journal, searching for any clue he might have missed. Near the back, he found a crumpled page he hadn't noticed before. May 26, 2009. I've made a decision. I'm going to meet them tonight. If I don't come back, Emily and Liam deserve to know the truth. The affair wasn't the only thing they were threatening me with. They know about the money. They know about the sentence ended abruptly as though Christopher had been interrupted. The next morning, Liam returned to Detective Harper with the new information. Together, they revisited the case files and found a small but crucial piece of evidence. A partial fingerprint on the underside of Christopher's car hood. The print matched a known enforcer for a local crime syndicate, one that had ties to loan sharking. That's enough to reopen the case, Harper said grimly. The investigation into the loan sharks intensified after Detective Harper found the fingerprint evidence. With the police now treating Christopher's death as a homicide, they began tracking down the syndicate's members. Harper enlisted the help of a task force specializing in organized crime, and their inquiries led them to a small network of criminals operating in the area. The breakthrough came when a known associate of the syndicate, a low-level enforcer named Daryl Hughes, was arrested during a routine traffic stop. Harper leaned on Daryl during interrogation, offering a reduced sentence in exchange for information. Cornered, Daryl cracked under pressure and revealed the names of the key players involved in the operation, including the man who had personally tampered with Christopher's brakes. Victor Castillo, a ruthless enforcer with a long history of intimidation and violence. Armed with this information, the police secured a warrant and raided one of the syndicate's hideouts. The operation was swift and precise, resulting in multiple arrests, including Victor Castillo himself. In his possession, they found records of Christopher's debt, as well as a list of other victims the syndicate had extorted over the years. During his interrogation, Victor admitted to tampering with Christopher's brakes but insisted it wasn't meant to kill him, only to scare him into paying. However, the evidence painted a different picture. Christopher's debt had grown so large and his resistance to their threats so steadfast, that the syndicate decided to eliminate him as an example to others. The trial that followed was long and grueling. Liam and Emily attended every session, determined to see justice served for Christopher. The prosecution presented overwhelming evidence, including Victor's confession, Daryl's testimony, and the financial records tying Christopher to the syndicate. In the end, Victor Castillo and the other members of the syndicate received life sentences for their roles in Christopher's murder and other crimes. The courtroom erupted in applause as the verdict was read, but for Liam and Emily, the moment was bittersweet. After the trial, Liam and Emily visited Christopher's grave once more. This time, their emotions were less raw, their grief tempered by the knowledge that justice had been served. I think he'd be proud of us, Emily said softly, her hand resting on Liam's arm. Liam nodded, his gaze fixed on the headstone. He made mistakes, but he didn't deserve what happened to him. At least now he can rest in peace. Emily wiped away a tear. And maybe we can too. As they left the cemetery, the weight that had hung over their marriage for so long began to lift. The truth had been painful, but it had also brought them closer in an unexpected way. They had faced betrayal, grief, and danger together, and in doing so, they had rediscovered their strength as a couple. Months later, Liam and Emily stood in their backyard, watching as their young daughter played with the family dog. Life had begun to feel normal again, though the scars of the past would always remain. Liam reached for Emily's hand, intertwining his fingers with hers. "You know," he said, "for the first time in a long time, I feel like we're going to be okay." Emily smiled up at him, her eyes shining with hope. "We already are." As they stood there, the sun setting in the distance, Liam felt a sense of peace he hadn't known in years. The road to the truth had been long and harrowing, but it had brought him clarity, closure, and a renewed appreciation for the life he had built. And for the first time since Christopher's death, he allowed himself to look toward the future, with hope.